Good morning. Happy International Women's Day. I didn't post yesterday, so I think you're going to get two from me today. Today, I wanted to talk particularly about the segment sectors and resources for women in maritime, because you may or may not know that maritime is still at sea only 2% women, according to the ILL survey, and that number has been constant since the 70s. So when I started working at sea, it was 2% back in 2005, and it is still 2% working at sea, and 90% of those women, that 2% at sea, are working in the cruise sector. And I think that that has a lot of things to do with the cruise sector being more exposed to both the visibility of women and of the cruise sector in general among the population. So people see cruise ships and they're like, oh, yes, I would like to work on cruise ships. And then you get more women there. But also that it's harder to hide when bad things happen and when harassment is happening and those kind of things in a more social environment with larger crews like they have on cruise vessels, compared to merchant vessels where you have between like 18 and 30, 35 at max people working on board. um, and in my experience, I worked on ships from 2005 until 2018, and I was often the only woman. Sometimes there were others sailing with me, but one or two was the normal experience for me. And there were a lot of ships that had zero women on board. And there was also a new survey that came out last year that was done with the IMO and WISTA, the Women's International Shipping and Trading Association, where they were trying to set a benchmark for women that are in the sector in total, so in the ocean industries. And that total number was only 29% of the overall workforce. And that's including like HR and finance roles that happen to be within the maritime and ocean industries, not necessarily specifically maritime. And I think that that's not reflective of the potential that is out there among women. So there's a whole locked talent pool that could be participating in the industry, but is currently not, because they either don't see the industry as attractive, they don't see that the industry exists, because some of maritime has traditionally been a bit invisible. It works, the logistics work, things get delivered, and then the people on shore don't necessarily think about how it's getting delivered and who is delivering it, and seeing that those roles exist, which is kind of contrast to cruise, where people go on cruises, they experience the cruise industry, they see cruise ships, and then there's more exposure on that side, which I think is why it has better numbers than the general industry. So that's a WISTA Women in Maritime survey, and you can see all the links to this on my website, which is linked also to in the bottom of where this is streaming. Then there's WISTA Norway, so the Women's International Shipping and Trading Association. They're in many, many countries around the world, and I'm on the board of WISTA Norway. And last International Women's Day, we launched the 40 by 30 pledge to allow companies to show that they're actively committed to promoting diversity in the maritime industry. We have quite a few companies in Norway that have signed on to the pledge, but the most important thing for the companies that are signing on to the pledge is not necessarily that they meet 100% that 40 by 30, that they're going to have 40% of women in leading positions. It's that they strive towards it and they make it an active goal, and they embedded in their processes, that they're actively looking for this locked talent that's not inside the industry currently, and that they get better exposure to the full talent pool and not just the one segment of men that have talent in this industry. So with the companies that had signed on to the pledge, we had a big workshop back in, I think it was in November, and we put out a report with best practices and then also what barriers there were for women to come into this industry and how we might overcome those barriers so that women can first enter the industry and then grow and be retained in leading positions where they can give more diverse input into the way things are working in the industry and improve the efficiency and efficacy of the industry overall. So I put some of the suggested action points, which are from the last page of that report. But if you want to read the whole thing, it's also linked on my website that's linked below this video. There were 3 kind of groupings of suggested actions. One is to set goals and to measure them. They need to know what their company is looking like and where they have potential for accessing locked talent, where they have potential to improve their use of the talent pool. So if they're measuring, let's say they have 5% women in one area of their business, they're now seeing that actually they're missing talent there, because it's not necessarily that the opportunities extended are equally extended as far as opportunities go, but that distribution of talents is equal. So you have equal talent that is across all of the population of the world, and sometimes we're only accessing a small percentage of that potential because they don't have the opportunity to study, to get visible in the right way to the right people to get into those kind of roles. So it's kind of a theme for me in a lot of things that I do. So I do some work with Wista Norway on this, and then also some other things because I'm, like I said, I got voted into their board. Another foundation that I work with that's working towards unlocking this locked talent is Captains Without Borders. And the ICO and BIMCO have been reporting that there's a shortfall of seafarers, that there's going to be almost 100,000 seafarers needed that will not be in the industry by 2026. And with that representation of female seafarers also being so low, I believe, and the people that I'm working with at Captains Without Borders believe, that the talent is there and that potential is there, but that potential is not being utilized in a way that it can grow because the opportunities are not necessarily extended to them. And what we've been doing is looking to help cadets to finish their studies and get their licenses. And in order to get their licenses, they have to sail as cadet. And a lot of companies only take one nationality or 2 nationalities. So there's, these national groupings of seafarers that have preference over other nationalities because that's who they work with. We hire Indians, or we hire Filipino, or we hire Europeans, although less so in the lower ranks. That nationalistic view of the industry and the way that STCW has ended up working out is that if you aren't from one of those countries, it's often either not possible or extremely difficult to get unlimited tonnage licenses and to gain access to the industry, no matter how talented you are, no matter how much you care about the industry or how much you have passion in the industry. If you're not extended that opportunity, you are not able to go to sea on big vessels. And that's something that we're working on, but it's actually been quite difficult to gain access to opportunities for these particular groups of seafarers, which is really a shame because they're very passionate. They've finished their maritime education. They have met the requirements for STCW, except for sailing days, and it's really difficult for them to get those opportunities. So we're really happy at Captains Without Borders to be partnering with North Shipping coming up in June, and to try to bring attention to this problem that we have in the industry, where we have preferential treatment to some nationalities over others, and we are not fully accessing the talent pool, female or not, in general, especially the female talent, but we're not utilizing all the talent that's out there to gain the very best results we could have. So Captains Without Borders is a USA-based 501c3 charitable foundation, so you can find it online. I linked to it. I find it to be something that is really missing in this overall picture and landscape of the maritime industry, because we are not utilizing the global talent pool as a global industry, which is really a shame. And lastly, that I want to talk about, there's other resources for women, but I can't link to all of them, although I might mention them afterwards. There's another foundation that's kind of near and dear to me, which is Women Offshore. And Women Offshore has changed the landscape of support for women in maritime. It's really propelling women and underrepresented orientations and genders and supporting them in their career and in creating a community where they can share their difficulties and where they can kind of combat harassment together and provide guidance and mentorship for those just entering the industry or making their way in the industry, or maybe going through a life change where they are looking for work ashore for the first time, and people moving from shore to sea as well. So they're a really important organization in the industry for women. So if you don't know about them, please visit their website. If you're a woman in maritime, there's a place where you can join the community on their website, and they offer free mentorship. They offer a lot of resources for harassment, and they're my go-to place for women in the industry. And there's also a couple others foundations. So there's Seafarers, which is out of Istanbul. There's the Maritime CEO that's out of India. They're putting out a whole bunch of stuff today because it's International Women's Day. There's Sea Sisters, which is out of, I think, Seattle or the west coast of the US. But look at the overall structure of the industry and where women are not included. And if you have the opportunity or the possibility to extend opportunity to talent that's not in the normal talent pool, I would encourage you to do so. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about this morning. I'm pretty sure I'll be back later today. We had a cancellation with someone that I was going to interview yesterday, and we rescheduled it for this afternoon. So let's see if that works. And I hope you have a really great day in Maritime. Talk soon.